Hello and welcome to Law Talk. My name is Mitch Panter. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Panter Panter Sampedro, and I'm your host for today. First, let me tell you a little bit about Law Talk. So probably about 30 years ago, I first became a lawyer, and together with my brother Brett, we wanted to do something to help with the community. We wanted to educate people, to talk to them, to tell them a little bit about the law and related topics. So we went over to the public broadcasting station and we had a show called Law Talk. On that show, we had politicians, we had lawyers, we had people that were involved in our local community. And what we did was for a half an hour, we got to talk to people. We got to let our audience know a little bit about what's going on in that given field. We had at the time Janet Reno, we had at the time Kathy Fernandez-Rundle, we had judges, and we had lawyers in all different areas of law and in the community. Fast forward a bunch of years, and we then formed the Panter Panter and Sampedro Network. And our goal for the network was to never say, I don't do that, or I don't know. So what we did was we sent out a blast to every lawyer in the community. And at the time, there was 8,000 of us. And we got them to join our firm network. And the network comprised of lawyers that do everything imaginable, from real estate to taxation. We're going to talk a little bit about today, problems with the IRS, probate, immigration, criminal, civil, everything. And what that means is that when somebody calls the law firm of Panter Panter and Sampedro and they say they have a problem with whatever it might be, if we don't do it, we know somebody that can. And we met with lawyers that are skilled, qualified, competent attorneys to become part of our network so that we could help you, the viewing audience, or you, the client that needs help. Thank you for being here today, Steve Klitzner. Pleasure to meet you. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm Steve Klitzner, and I'm a tax attorney, but I'm not a tax attorney who does tax planning. I don't like tax planning. It's bad for my business. I only take care of people who have IRS problems. People in businesses owe the IRS, are getting audited, or haven't filed all their tax returns. And that's what my practice is limited. Fortunately, I'm here in Florida, which of course is a hotbed for anything like tax problems.
Sure.
So the IRS keeps me plenty busy.
All right, let me backtrack. The Panter Panter and Sampedro Network got you involved. When did you get involved with us? Why and how?
Well, I was thinking about that, Mitch. It was about 10 years ago. We were at a Dave Lorenzo function.
Right.
And he had a bunch of lawyers there. And of course, your brother, Brett, has to stand up and talk about the Panter Panter Sampedro Network. And it sounded like the best idea I ever heard. And I joined right shortly after that. I got together with Brett for lunch down by your office and became part of the organization. And it's there's nothing else like it here in South Florida.
So before we got on the air today, you were talking about Union, New Jersey, and we were born in Union, New Jersey. So tell us a little bit about your history, where you're from, and how is it you made it to all the way to sunny South Florida?
Plain.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was and it's all, I don't want to.
Small world.
It's almost 50 years ago.
Right.
This June, I came to the University of Miami. And then they just wouldn't let me back in New Jersey, so I've been here ever since.
Where'd you go to college? Where'd you go to law school?
University of Miami. And then when it came time for law school, I said, well, I don't want to go anywhere. And I stayed at for law school also.
I know my son took an LLM in taxation. There's all kinds of specialization that you can do. Did you do anything like that? Or how did you get to know that, hey, I want to do tax work?
Well, when I just wanted to get out of law school, get ready to start working. And I was actually a personal injury lawyer. I was like a young you back then starting in the late 70s. But then a new century came along and I changed what I was. Every century I changed my practice. I was a personal injury lawyer last century. This century, I only do IRS problem resolution work.
And how did you get to train or be educated or to learn how to do that sort of work?
Well, I answered an ad.
Okay.
I was doing the favorite part of my day was reading my junk mail. Because when you do personal injury work, all the letters are just horrible that you get. It's just motion to dismiss, motion for summary judgment. So I was just reading my junk mail, and my junk mail came from a CPA in Colorado saying that he has an area of law where people like you, the phone rings off the hook, there's less pressure, less stress, you get paid well. And I said, well, what is this? And it was representing people with IRS problems. Now, listen, at the time, I knew nothing about the IRS. I called my brother, who's also a personal injury lawyer. I said, Jay, I'm going to start representing people against the IRS. And he said, do you even know what that stands for? I said, International Resource Society. I don't know, but this is what I'm going to do. And I decided to immerse myself in it. and take all the education I could, joined all the organizations I could. And as a matter of fact, a few years after that, I started speaking for all those organizations. And now I get to go around the country speaking. And even, I guess really what made me feel so good is last year, I was appointed to the Internal Revenue Service Advisory Council.
Wow.
Small committee, and we give the IRS advice. We meet with the commissioner and the heads of different parts of the IRS, and we write reports for them. And it's been really very rewarding. And I think, I mean, that was just the culmination of my dedication to just doing this work and being recognized by them to where they appointed me to a 3-year term.
So what does this work mean? I mean, everybody, we're all afraid of the IRS, and we're all, yeah, exactly. We don't know. There's never a good letter that you're going to get from the IRS, usually speaking. But what is it that you do on a day-to-day basis? How do you help people? Because obviously that's what you do.
Yeah. And every IRS problem has a solution. Although sometimes the solution is, well, you have the money, you owe the money, you just need to pay it. But every case has a solution. And I get calls every day from people who get a letter from the IRS.
Well, let me stop you there. Hold on.
Yeah.
We're all afraid of, in today's day and age, the phone rings, they say it's the IRS. The emails, they say they're the IRS. The letters for the IRS. How do we know it's real?
Well, the emails are a scam.
Okay.
And there's something about those scam emails where I think they're required to spell a word wrong or use bad grammar. I don't know why they just can't do a spell check on them. But forget the emails.
Okay.
They will do visits, although they're not doing visits right now.
What do you mean a visit? What's a visit?
To the house.
They'll just knock on your door?
I love the knock on the door.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're not doing that right now.
Okay.
They're not back in the field yet. Usually it comes with a letter. They don't really call as much as a first contact because of all the scams.
Right.
Because you don't believe it's the IRS. I had one guy, he got a call years ago from a revenue agent saying, we're auditing you. And it came on his anniversary. So he thought it was one of his friends playing a joke, and
Right.
he hung up on him and started cursing at him. It was pretty funny. But they understood that.
Okay.
But usually now it's by letter.
Okay.
And the certified letters,
Okay.
those are the important ones.
Okay.
The other letters are good. The certified letters really mean that if you don't do something, something bad is really going to happen to you.
I get a letter. What do I do with the letter?
Oh, you send it over to me.
Okay.
But basically, you read the letter. Now, you know, the IRS is doing a lot of correspondence audits because they don't have the personnel to do the audit. So they'll send you a letter saying, you know, we looked at your return and we've got some information. And from what we see here, you made a big mistake. You owe us, it could be tens of thousands of dollars. And usually the information the IRS is telling you about is information they receive, but it's not always correct. And a lot of people ignore the letter and they start ignoring the series of letters. The next thing they know, it's not, we propose to charge you this tax. It's, you owe the money now. Here we come, we're coming after you. Okay. So when you get the letter, the sooner you do something, the better.
Okay. And by doing something, call you and get a hold of you. So now, is there a difference in when you get involved from day one versus me calling the IRS and trying to work it out?
Yeah, there is, because as time goes on, there are certain rights that you have that kind of go by the wayside a little bit. It's always better that we do it because people say stupid things when they call the IRS. Sometimes people even lie, which is even worse than, you know, everybody says, well, you don't want your clients talking to the IRS. You're afraid they're going to tell the truth. No, you're afraid they're going to lie. I had a guy a couple of years ago. He got audited. He was a contractor. He gets audited. He goes, well, I'm going to go down there. I'll talk to the revenue agent. What could go wrong with this? As soon as they hear what I have to say, I'm sure they'll be fine. Excuse me. So he goes down there, and the revenue agent knew what she was asking. And she said to him, and he's a contractor, she said, did you ever cash any checks at a check cashing store? So figuring, well, how would she know something like that? He said, no, of course not. She said, well, we have reason to believe you cashed $1.8 million in checks this year. And he said to me, well, they're wrong about that. It was 2.1 million.
Oh,
But that was a problem where he could have gone to jail for something like that, for lying to the IRS. Luckily, they just, you know, told him what they really knew. So going down there and talking to the IRS it's generally not a good strategy. Plus, you have to wait on hold for the better part of a day.
So let me ask you, there's criminal law in our world, there's criminal law and there's civil law. And civil law, you're not going to jail for anything. Are you in criminal law with your situation, the IRS? Do they put you in jail? How's that work?
Well, generally not. Usually people don't go to jail because, you know, if people went to jail for owing the IRS money, I could just go down once a week and I'd have a whole wing downtown and
Sure.
I could just visit all my clients. People go to jail when they lie to the IRS.
Okay.
When
Because
they-
that becomes a perjury charge
Right.
as compared to just a lie.
Right.
Okay.
And when they file, you know, when you file a bad return, they audit you, you're not going to jail. It's the people that write that they made zero money or that it's unconstitutional to pay taxes. And they say to the IRS, well, what are you going to do to me? That's a bad strategy.
Okay.
So as a general rule, people don't go to jail. It's a civil matter. And it's just a matter of working it out.
All right. So tell me about my initial interview. I call you. I got the letter from the IRS. They say that, hey, you didn't count the check cashing stores. I come in, I see you. What's your initial interview?
Or that you owe the money. Well, I want to find out what's happening now. A lot of people want to tell me the history, and that's fine. But the most important thing is, what's the last thing the IRS has said to you? What's going on at this particular time? And once I hear that, then I can tell them what we can do for them. And I charge a flat fee. It covers everything we do start to finish, although initially sometimes there might be just an initial fee to find out what's going on. But the important thing is I've got to get the transcripts from the IRS. I've got to find out what returns are filed, what they owe, whether the 10-year statute of limitations is coming up.
I was going to go there. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Are they in collections? Are they about to have their bank account levied or their wages levied? And then I have a better idea. I also want to find out their financial situation to find out their ability to pay. We have people that owe the IRS $100,000 and they pay every penny of it. Other people pay $100 because they don't have the ability ever to pay the money. We can settle for $100.
You mentioned something really important, the statute of limitations.
Yeah.
And in our world, when you have a personal injury accident, you have 4 years from the accident occurred within which to pursue the claim. And if you don't pursue the claim, it's gone. How far back can the IRS go? What is the time limit, if you will?
Well, the statute of limitations is 10 years. And it's the same as in your world, because what it really means is the IRS has 10 years to collect or to file a lawsuit to get a judgment for 20 years, which they generally don't do, only in extreme circumstances. So they have 10 years to collect, and the clock starts running once they've been assessed the taxes. Now, over the 10 years, there are things that taxpayers do that are good things to do at the time, but they will extend the statute of limitations. But every year,
Give me an example of that. I don't understand that.
well, if someone does an offer in compromise to try to resolve
Okay.
the case, if someone files a bankruptcy, anytime you do something which stops the IRS from collecting, that extends the statute of limitations.
you mentioned the magic word there, bankruptcy. How does
Yeah.
bankruptcy fall into play with the IRS?
Well, you can discharge taxes in bankruptcy. Personal taxes, which are older than 3 years old. Well, there's some other criteria, but it is dischargeable, which a lot of bankruptcy lawyers don't even know. When I'm referring a case to a bankruptcy lawyer and I start talking to them about it, if they don't seem to know that they can discharge the taxes, I have to call a different bankruptcy lawyer.
Okay.
But it does work for some people. It's not always the best strategy, though, but it is a strategy. We have different tools we use to resolve a case, and there's a tool for every case.
That brings us to question 3. What kind of solutions are there for the IRS problems? I mean, you mentioned it perfectly. I got $100,000 in the bank. I owe $50,000. Clearly, I have the ability to pay. I didn't pay the taxes. I should pay the taxes here. Here's your money. Here's the penalty. Here's whatever it is. Contrary to that, I owe $150,000. I don't have a nickel in the bank. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to have them take my house. Florida, we'll talk about that in a moment with Homestead. Some of the solutions.
Well, and that boy, you have too much knowledge on this. Either you have an IRS, I got to check you out and see. No, but you're just don't compete with me. I think you do very well in this area. I won't do any more personal injury. I haven't done it in 20 years. The solution's based on the ability to pay.
Okay.
If I can convince the IRS that the person can't pay because they have no money in the bank, they have no equity in any property, they don't make a lot of money, the most we ever settled for $100, the most they've ever owed is $455,000. They just had no ability to pay. Other people, if they can pay, we have to work out a payment plan. Sometimes the payment plan won't full pay and the statute of limitations will run.
Wait, what does that mean? Well, I owe $150,000. I'm paying $100 a week or a month, whatever it is, and there's no way within 10 years. So if I don't pay it all within 10 years, I'm done.
It goes away. Statute of limitations runs. But they may come back every couple of years to check up on you and find out whether or not you're making any money and you have the ability to pay. I had a guy that we had him uncollectible. He owed $1.2 million. Statute of limitations was coming up in 6 months. So they assigned it to the field. And revenue officer calls me and says, I want some updated information. We want to see if we can get some money from this guy. So I found my client and I said, I didn't want some finances. Nothing had changed. I sent the revenue officer all his financial information. And the revenue officer, with 6 months to go, says, looks like he's paying $300 a month for storage. We want what's in the storage. Find out what's in the storage. So I found out and I called back the revenue officer. I said, listen, you and him can rent a truck and go up to North Carolina. He's got storage. He's got some old typewriters. There's a World Book Encyclopedia. You're welcome to everything he had in storage. And of course, at that point, it went away. 6 months went, and the $1.2 million went away.
Do they have the right to come? So he wins the lottery next week. What happens then?
He won the lottery, keeps the money.
Wow.
Yeah. Once that statute runs, it runs.
Okay.
And everybody's got a different solution. I had a gentleman, we had him not collectible. He calls me on the phone. He says, listen, I made a lot of money. I can pay this. That's $750,000. He says, call him and I can pay the money now. Tell him not to file a lien. For some reason, they hadn't filed a lien. So I called this and don't file a lien, coming up with $750,000. He had this business. I can't tell you what it was. It was one of those businesses which wasn't making any money, was worth a lot of money. He was offered $1 billion for the business.
Wow.
He turned it down. He wanted $2 billion. And he could have bought the Marlins with that. Couldn't buy the Heat. He might have had a shot at the Panthers.
Maybe.
But he turned it down. He only got a third of it, in fairness, because he had two partners. And then I read something in the paper after he paid the money. About a year later, I read an article in the paper. I don't know the technical term, belly up, something about that. The business went under. He lost it all. Run into the ground was another term in the newspaper article, and he ends up with nothing. He should have taken the $1 billion.
So let me ask you, Florida as compared to other states, I imagine IRS is national, so there really is no implication. Is there anything different about Florida and how the IRS deals with people in Florida?
Well, to some degree, because I practice all over the country, but the majority of my people are here in Florida. But like anything else, Florida is a hotbed for everything.
Right.
So I was talking to the commissioner for collections of the IRS. And he says, we have a map and we have all the hotspots. New York is red, Dallas is red, Los Angeles is red, and the entire state of Florida is red. we have more problems with you in Florida than anywhere else in the country.
Well, they're coming from all those other places to here and bringing their problems with us.
Yeah.
So we heard about many years ago, and it's funny because he lived around the corner from me. OJ came, and OJ had all these tax issues, and then he had civil judgments against him. How does somebody like that in that circumstance avoid tax problems or resolve the tax problems?
Well, it depends. And I don't know how much OJ had left at that point, but I don't know if they would have done an offer in compromise for him. But the IRS, the higher profile the person, the more careful the IRS is.
Okay.
Because they don't want to ever send the message, don't pay your taxes, call us in a couple of years, we'll make a deal, we'll waive penalty, we'll waive interest. They don't just do that. Penalty they'll waive if you have reasonable cause. But they don't do that because if they did that, no one would ever pay their taxes. They just wait a couple of years and call them and say, hey, let me just pay you 60 cents on the dollar. So it doesn't work that way. Everything is based on the actual numbers.
Well, then let me talk about the actual numbers. There's three components, if I'm not mistaken. There's the actual number, there's penalty, and there's interest. Am I missing anything?
No, that's it. And the
Okay.
interest itself is that they never waive the interest because that's statutory. Penalties
And
we can get rid of.
What does statutory interest mean?
Well, that means that the law says they got to charge the interest.
Okay.
Which
and
is
how much interest?
Well, it's 3% this quarter. Starting in April, it's going up to 4%. It's been 3% for a couple of years now.
Okay.
And
Is
that
that
you're
based
stuck
on
with.
something, or where do they come up with that number?
Yeah, that is based on a formula. And every quarter they come up with something new on that, but it's just based on the economy and the interest rates, et cetera. Penalties can be max out when they hit 25% for not paying
25% of the debt,
of
whatever
the
that
debt.
number
Yeah,
might be.
yeah,
Okay.
it goes up 0.5% a month until it hits 25%.
Okay.
And if we have reasonable cause, we can get rid of that. And then you have but the IRS looks at the whole thing. As far as the IRS is concerned, you owe the whole thing. They don't say, well, you owe this and you owe this in penalty, this in interest. This is your debt. This is what we want. And most of my clients, believe it or not, and a lot of people say, boy, the people you represent, these are bad people. They're not bad people. They've fallen on hard times. They have fallen behind. They really would never dream of breaking the law. But for them to take care of this IRS problem, especially when it starts snowballing, it's like doing a master's thesis. It's like going back to college and doing a thesis. This is so over their head. And even though we're dealing with arithmetic, not math, really, it's just too hard for them to get a hold of. They actually sometimes they look forward to the IRS calling them so they could just get this under control. Now, businesses have a similar problem because they have to pay payroll taxes.
Okay.
Now, most businesses struggle because they can't pay all the bills. But if you don't pay your rent, they're going to throw you out. You don't pay your vendors, they don't supply you. You don't pay your employees, they're going to quit. The easiest entity to stiff, at least initially, is the IRS, because they don't have their hand out every week. They do, but they're not standing there wanting the money. So people don't pay their payroll taxes. And after a couple of weeks, after a couple of quarters, it goes up significantly. Sometimes it'll put people out of business. So that's when they come to me and they have to change their mindset. They have to pay those taxes. And as long as any issue you have with the IRS, the secret is this: you have to get current. You have to start paying your taxes and filing on time.
Even if you owe back.
Right.
Just
Once
start
you
fresh.
do that, then they'll go back and they'll say, okay, we'll deal with the old stuff. But if every year, every quarter, you're not paying your taxes, they won't make you a deal because you don't have it under control. So that's always the first thing we do. We've got to get current, and then we'll deal with the old stuff, which is hard.
Well, so I don't go to you, but I go to Quicken, I go to Charles Schwab, whatever the names of these companies are, and I go to one of those guys, and I'm just a small businessman. I don't know what I'm doing. I rely upon them to pay my taxes correctly, to do everything correctly. I got John Smith, that's my bookkeeper, and he's doing it. What responsibility do I have when I hire either the John Smiths of the world or the H&R Blocks of the world?
Well, yeah, or it'd be like ADP you'd go to,
Okay.
or one of those companies, and as a general rule, they're not the ones that make the mistake. It's usually the taxpayer, the business says, look, I don't have the money, don't pay it. So they do what they have to do. It's the fact that the money's not there.
Okay. And what if you got the two distinctions in terms of people that come to you, those that made a mistake and those that intentionally, purposely didn't pay the bill? What's the difference between them, and how do you handle the two different types of people?
Well, the intentional purpose is usually not, people don't get up in the morning and say, how am I not going to pay the IRS today? How am I going to stiff the IRS? They just fall behind. And yes, it is intentional, but it's a matter of not having the money to do it. And a lot of times, some of the businesses just have to close. Sometimes if you can't pay your payroll taxes, you've never been able to. I'll have a husband and wife in, the husband owns the business. The wife may have a little bit to do with the business. And I have sometimes tell them, look, you can't pay your taxes. You're talking about borrowing money for this quarter. What's going to happen next quarter? Maybe you got to stop the business. And the wife's usually like this, and the husband's like, I don't know anything else. Because usually he's good at doing the work. He's just not good at running the business. And that's the real problem. And it's like, well, what am I going to do? It's like, well, you're not making any money now. You're getting in deeper with the IRS. Sometimes it's better to go get a job. It just depends on the situation.
Personal versus corporate. So mom and pop, and I don't pay my taxes versus ABC Corporation, I don't pay my taxes. What's the difference? How do you handle them differently? And do they mix in with one another frequently?
Well, yeah, and a lot of times people that owe the IRS for business taxes, they also owe for personal taxes. I have an attorney I represent, and he came to me and he hadn't filed his individual taxes, his payroll taxes, and his corporate taxes for 10 years. He was making a lot of money too. The IRS frowns on stuff like that. That's a person that could theoretically
Are
go
you
to
better
jail.
not paying at all or paying under? Which is worse?
Well, it's always better to pay something.
Okay.
And to file your returns. It's always better to file your returns because there's a penalty for not filing the returns also. But the whole thing is you've just got to get a grasp of it. And it's hard to do. I get it 100%. But once you get a grasp for it, it's like all those problems that you always fear and think about. And once you start doing them, they weren't really as bad as they were before you started doing it. You just got to take control of your situation.
And so I don't want to talk to the IRS because I'm going to say something that's bad, that's wrong, that they're going to trap me in. It's like I don't want to talk to a good criminal defense lawyer because on cross-exam, they're going to destroy me. That's the whole purpose of what they do. You deal with the IRS every day, day in and day out. Who do you deal with? How do you deal with them? How do you find that?
Well, we deal mostly with local offices. Revenue officers do the collection. Revenue agents do the audits. And most of my people are here in Florida. And I know, I've dealt with all of them, all of their managers, even the territory managers I knew when they were revenue officers. And the good thing about the IRS is that they have rules. They have to follow the rules. There's laws that they have to follow. And then there's the Internal Revenue Manual, which is their own guidebook, which is public knowledge, which I've read. And the IRS follows the Internal Revenue Manual 100% of the time. Unless they don't like what it says, then they don't follow it at all. And then it's up to me to hold their feet to the fire. And they have to follow the rules. And by doing that, taxpayers have plenty of rights. The sooner they get me involved, the more rights they have, the more chance we can go to an appeals officer whose job it is to resolve the case. You just have to, they have to just take some accountability. And most of my clients do. I think the biggest problem my clients have is they make what looks like a lot of money to the IRS. They just don't have a lot of money left over every month. So it's up to me to find a number that my client can live with that the IRS will accept.
All right. The boogie board in there, COVID. How has COVID in these last few years affected your business, my business, the IRS's business? Can you get a hold of them? They're not there. What's going on with that?
Well, it's been a problem because they have fallen behind on correspondence. They, at some point, they did announce they opened all the mail. They hadn't read it yet, but at least it's been opened. And now they're starting to divert some employees to reading the mail. And that's hurt them a little bit too. So they've fallen behind. Not being able to go out on the field has made it more difficult for them because they can't go to somebody's door and really scare them, which is what they're trying to do. So their collection work is down. They're in a bit of disarray now, which means it's the perfect time to take care of an IRS problem because now you can get ahead of the curve. We can get ahead of the wave, and we can dictate how we're going to resolve the case without them threatening to levy us at the moment. It's always better when we have control of the situation.
All right, we're winding down now. So tell us, how do I contact you? What's the best way to contact you? When?
Well, the best, and consultations with me is free, and it's similar to your firm.
Hold on, that's important. Say that again.
Yeah. The consultation is free.
Okay.
Similar to your firm. Because I've called you and I've said, look, I've got a malpractice case to refer you. What do you think about this? You spend the time, you look into it. Initially, you go, I don't know, but you do look into it. You come back, you say, listen, there's nothing I can do, but thanks for referring me. And I feel the same way. People don't waste my time. I get calls every day from people. Sometimes I say, look, this isn't something you need me on. Here's what you do. Just go on your way. Other times I say, you really need my help. This isn't something where you just go to anybody, they fill out some forms, you see what happens. You need somebody similar to a doctor. If a doctor charges you more money, you don't say, well, let me go with the cheaper guy. You want the guy that's best, that's really going to be able to do the job. So I'm always happy to talk to people.
How do I talk to you? Do I call you? Do I email you?
Calling the number 305-682-1118 is the best way.
Say it again.
That's 305-682-1118. All
right.
That's the best way to do it. You go on my website, which is floridataxsolvers.com. Florida, spell it out, tax, T-A-X, solvers, S-O-L-V-E-R-S.com. you can contact me through there. You can contact me through email at help@floridataxsolvers.com.
I know you have a paper pamphlet kind of thing that you put out, or a newsletter of some sort. Tell us about that.
I do send out a newsletter. I send out a written newsletter every month or so to people that are on my warm list, either former clients, referral attorneys, CPAs, enrolled agents.
How do I get involved in that and get one of those?
Well, you're already on the list.
I know
now,
I am,
Mitch.
but
yes,
the viewing
you are.
audience
Even
out
Brett's
there,
on too.
The viewing audience, how do they get on that
They
list?
could just call and we always put them on. We also have a digital newsletter that we send out every couple of weeks too, so I'm top of mind to people. And whenever I send it out, I always get a call here or there. Somebody's thinking about calling me, or CPA says, I was just thinking I got to get rid of this case. Let me give it over to you. You talk to the people. And I'm always happy to talk to people. I just feel that you kind of have a responsibility with what we do to help out people, even if it's not something that you can do for them, to just lead them in the right direction.
And that's what we do in the Panter Panter Sampedro Network. We're proud to have you part of it. I'm going to give you the last few seconds. Give a shout out to your family. Come on.
Oh, yeah, because I had everybody listening today, and they better all be listening.
There you go.
Your ratings are going to boom today because my family's getting bigger. Even my grandchildren are watching, I hope. Go to school. But they're all listening
all
in.
Steve's family, friends, everybody that's spending the time. We wish you a great day and we thank you. My name is Mitchell Panter with the law firm of Panter Panter and Sampedro. We're pleased and thrilled to present Law Talk to you. We hope you have a great day. We hope you've learned quite a bit, and feel free to call Steve Klitzner at any point in time with any tax problems. That's all for today. Thank you.